Hi, Victoria. Thank you so much for joining me on the Mary-Jess Meets podcast.
Yay, hi. It's so good to
Hi.
speak to you.
I'm so glad that you could join us because I really love being able to keep in touch with you and seeing what you've been up to ever since we first met, which was at the Songbirds concert in London, wasn't it?
Exactly, at the pheasantry.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
such a great concert and you are such a great host. Oh my gosh. Like really
Oh,
good.
thank you. No, we had a really good time. It was a good concert, and it it's always great to come and meet people that you've all only sort of met online before, So it's yeah, it was great.
It really was. And I know what you mean about meeting people that you've only really met online before, because I feel
Yeah.
like I know lots of people within our genre from the internet. And so it means that when we get together and
Yeah.
meet for the first time, I'm like, oh, I know this person already. It's really lovely.
Exactly. And it was so nice to hear everyone sing live and just unfortunately we didn't have enough time to really sing anything together. So I think that's probably my next wish for the classical crossover community, that once we get to travel again and be able to do things, physically in the same place again, that we could do something similar to the pheasantry concert and sing stuff together as well.
That would be absolutely amazing. I'd love that. And you're the
Yeah.
perfect person to organise something like that because you've gone into the
Yeah.
production of musicals, haven't you? That's just
Yes.
amazing.
Mhm.
But how, right, let's go into how you got into that and then talk about how it's been affected during this current time.
Yeah. Okay. So um, I think the reason basically was that I felt like I wasn't. I mean, you actually have to sort of go back in time, way further back, because I've been working in a lot of different countries during my career. I lived in Denmark, I lived in Germany and the United States. I've been a lot to Asia. I've been in Spain, in Romania. So when I moved back to Sweden, which was really because my children were getting big enough to start school, and we wanted them, to have sort of a safe base
Yeah.
rather than moving around all the time. When they're small, it doesn't matter because all they want anyway is your, mom and dad. But when my oldest daughter was about to start school, we moved back to Sweden, and Sweden is a rather small country, and I mean, I can't say what's happening in other countries, but at least here, there are sort of the same people doing the work all the time.
Okay.
And it's, yeah, so it's difficult to get into that little duck pond, when you haven't been there from the beginning, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I felt that I had already done so many things abroad that I wasn't really willing at my age and with my experience to start over from zero again. And I found that the best way to get around that problem was to start producing myself. And so it actually started with just one really big concert in Stockholm. I rented one of the biggest concert halls in Stockholm.
Wow. That's
And
a big, brave
yeah, it
investment,
was a
isn't it?
crazy idea.
I
It
love
was
your
kind
honesty
of
there.
like, yeah, but it was kind of like the equivalent of renting Royal Albert Hall in London,
Holy
and just like,
moly.
oh, I'm going to do a best of musical theater concert here because, basically go big or go home. If I do it really big and people think I'm crazy, maybe at least they'll come and see me, and I'll get a chance to be seen by producers and people and whatever. And this concert was sold out and was a huge success.
That's
And so,
amazing.
and that, it was, yeah, it was really crazy. And then that was the spring 2016.
That
And
must have been,
after,
sorry, but that is
yeah,
incredible to take a risk like that and have it pay off so
yeah.
well. That's incredible. Isn't that just a testament to how hard you work and how you know your stuff? Like, that's absolutely incredible. Like, let's take a moment to celebrate that.
Yay. No, but the funny thing is that no one believed it would work because I didn't have any like well-known names in the concert, no like celebrities or famous singers or anything. It was just like really, really good musical theater singers,
Wow.
friends and old colleagues and whatnot.
Yeah.
So and I kind of felt like if you work really hard and stay consistent, then quality will pay off in the end, you know. And it was really exciting to see that happen at that concert. And then um, from the spring 2016, I mean, we ended up doing 4 concerts that spring. And since then, this show that is called Från Broadway till Duvemåla, which is Duvemåla is Björn and Benny from ABBA. You know, they wrote a Swedish musical called Kristina från Duvemåla.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, which is, I mean, it's huge in Sweden. You should check it out. It has some beautiful music.
Okay.
So I named the show From Broadway to Duvemåla basically as a name for, it's a greatest musical theater hits concert basically. And now we've toured for 4 years with that show around Sweden, and this year was the first time we started performing outside of Sweden. So we did concerts in Oslo in Norway in February, and then COVID-19 happened, and now everything's shut down. But that was kind of the start of the producing. And then yeah, and then I took another huge risk because I decided that I wanted to produce the musical Bridges of Madison County that was playing on Broadway with music by Jason Robert Brown. Fantastic show. And so I produced the Scandinavian premiere of Bridges of Madison County in
Wow.
2018,
That's amazing.
where I also played Francesca.
Great.
And so that was a crazy project. I don't think I've worked that much in my whole life as I did the fall of 2018, because not only did I produce the show and play the lead, I also produced From Broadway to Duvemåla with a completely different cast, because I was in Bridges. So I was producing 2 shows and was sort of playing the lead and in charge of so many different people at the same time. It was crazy. And at the same time I was also separating from my husband and moving and to an apartment after having lived in a house for I don't know how many years, and children being upset obviously, and it was just a really crazy the fall of 2018. So
That is a lot to deal with. Do you think it was helpful
it's
having
been a
that
lot.
much work to throw yourself into?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, so then 2019 things sort of started to um, level out and get a bit more balanced. And this year, I mean, 2020 looked amazing on paper when we celebrated New Year's Eve and was going into 2020. I was like, this is going to be my best year ever, because this year I was also producing an outdoor arena concert of Jesus Christ Superstar
Whoa.
in a huge outdoor arena with some really spectacular performers. I wasn't supposed to be in it as an artist myself, just producing it. We sold like 15,000 tickets, and we basically got word just this week that it's probably not going to happen. And to my big disappointment, and I'm super disappointed in. I think it is a really useful group because they have revoked my rights, so I'm not allowed to move the show to 2021, which
What?
means that I have um, and when everyone else in our business are trying to help each other out, and in this crazy situation that has occurred. I mean, it's not. I mean, I didn't come up with COVID-19, and so it's just crazy to me that such a big company decides to revoke the rights for a show that has already sold 15,000 tickets. The set design is already done. Like, I've paid probably £150,000 already for the show that I'm not going to get back, for set designs, costumes, everything. And they won't even pay me the prepaid royalties for the show back. They have just canceled my rights.
Oh my gosh. My
So
heart is breaking for you. I don't
yeah,
understand how you're not saying that and bursting into tears right now.
Well, because I found out, like last week, and I have been, basically curled up in a ball crying for a week. But at some point you need to just pull yourself together and, see how can you solve this situation? How can I, save whatever I can save? And yeah, I don't have it all figured out yet because it's a lot of money, and yeah, so I don't know yet. I have a few ideas, and my hope is that the audience, the people that bought tickets for the show, will be understanding enough in this situation, which is like two major blows that I couldn't control in any way, shape, or form. It's COVID-19 and then RUG revoking the rights. So hopefully, at least some of those people will keep their tickets to go to the show that I'm producing next year instead, and just to sort of help me out. And yeah, I don't know, but otherwise there's really not much more I can do at this point. Then I'll just have to let the company go bankrupt and wait COVID-19 out and try to pick up the pieces and start over when this is all done with.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I've got
it's a difficult time.
That's an understatement.
Yeah.
I've got so many questions there. Like, why would this company revoke the rights when it's given it to you before? Like, would they not just extend it, or can you apply again? Is that a possibility? How does that work?
No, basically they are claiming that they have. Obviously they are one of the biggest entertainment companies in the world, and we're all on our knees at the moment because of COVID. So they're claiming that they're having the same financial problems like everybody else, and they are planning on doing an international tour of Jesus Christ Superstar, probably to make money themselves, which is understandable. I do get that, and they're planning to do that in, I think, 2021, 2022. And then they feel like if I moved my show to next year, it could possibly compete with their international arena tour. But I feel like we're talking about two completely different things, because my show is going to be played in a very specific arena called Dalhalla, which is basically an old quarry.
Oh wow!
And it's a very, you can look it up later. It's a really, really cool place. But it's about 2.5 hours drive from Stockholm, out in the middle of nowhere. And it's one of the most beautiful outdoor arenas in Europe. And I feel like if the people who have bought tickets to see Jesus Christ Superstar there, they have bought it for the full experience, not necessarily just to see that specific musical, but because of the whole experience of the place and the musical and the big names that we've got in the show. So to say that we would compete with an international show indoors in an arena, I think is completely wrong, because if someone has bought a ticket to my show and they can't see Jesus Christ Superstar at Dalhalla, I don't think they necessarily will go and buy a ticket to see an international show indoors in an arena. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah,
Like,
it
it's,
does
to
make
me,
sense.
it's two completely different shows. I mean, it's the
Hopefully
same
then,
music, but
yeah. But hopefully then, if they're paying for that experience, it means that people will be willing to hold on to their tickets for the next show that you can do there.
right.
That's the hope, isn't
So
it?
yeah, so that's what I'm hoping, that people will understand that this is not something that I've done just to be mean or whatever, this is something, but you know what I'm saying? Like, this is completely out of my control for two huge reasons.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to fix it by producing another great show, which I hope they will want to see instead. And that way, keep their tickets. I get to keep the money for a year, and then we can do the other show. I mean, the £150,000 that are already lost, I mean, that's lost. You know what I'm saying? Because I can't use a set design that says Jesus Christ Superstar in another show. But yeah, I mean, I think pieces of it we could probably reuse for the other show. And yeah, so I'm trying to figure this whole jigsaw puzzle of a mess out at this moment, really.
What a jigsaw puzzle to try and sort out as well, because I guess you can't even move it till the end of the year because it's outside, and then it'll be in the winter and everybody will freeze into icicles.
Yeah, and I actually reread the contract today because I'm trying to speak to a lawyer to see if there's anything I can do. And in the contract, it specifically says that the shows have to be played before the end of August of this year. So yeah, so I don't think that's going to happen.
Oh my gosh.
Even if we could play outdoors in the middle of winter in Sweden, which we can't. So yeah.
Wow. Well, one of my normal questions while I'm recording these podcasts in lockdown is, what's keeping you busy in lockdown? And it sounds like you've got enough going on.
I do. I if I'm not curled up in a ball or drinking myself to sleep on rosé wine or anything else to sort of not kill myself. No, I mean, all jokes aside, I'm really glad I have my children because they're keeping me sane. I have something to do, and something to take my mind off of all the other craziness. And then obviously there's a whole lot of work trying to, I mean, up until this point, we've tried to find solutions to either move Jesus Christ Superstar, something. But now, I mean, we really have to just try to save what can be saved and see if, and then we have the fall tour from Broadway to Duvemåla, which we don't know if we're going to be able to play either. So it's just, I feel like there's just so many balls up in the air that you can't control at the moment. And I feel like in the beginning of this whole crisis, which started in March for us at least, I was really stressed out, and I was, because I'm used to working at a very high pace and with a lot of things going on. And for the first 2 weeks, it was crazy because we tried to move all the shows from the spring tour to the fall. And so it was just a whole lot of administration and logistics and things that we had to figure out. But once that was done it took us about 2 weeks. But once that was done, there was nothing left to do. And then suddenly you're in this sort of vacuum where, your hands are tied. You can't do anything.
That's such a strange feeling.
It is a strange feeling. And especially, as I said, when you're used to working and having a super tight schedule and being busy and doing, I was going crazy. And now I feel like I've just come to a, whatever happens mode. I don't even know anymore. I won't say that I've given up because I haven't, but I don't stress myself up about things anymore because there's no point. So I'm just trying to stay calm and keep, trying. That's pretty much
That's
all
so
I can do at this
you're
point.
so strong, honestly. I don't know how you're dealing with all of that. It like it breaks my heart and blows my mind, like hearing about it, because it's not just having to rearrange everything and then your whole work life balance, everything changing. It's the grief for what you could have had. It's the not having control over anything when you're used to having control over every aspect of your career as a self-employed independent artist person, and to then have that taken away from you as well. It's a lot to deal with, and then you add oh wow, add all of what you've just explained to your plate as well. My goodness gracious me, I would be in a ball crying all day long.
Trust me, I have been also
Goodness
several
gracious me.
times. And no, but and I had a recording project with my record company in Hong Kong, which we were talking about for a while, but then all this other stuff started happening in Hong Kong before COVID-19 hit, so that was cancelled. So right now, I don't even know if or when, or I can start recording new material, or how I would do that. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I always there's always ideas popping in my head for different things I can do or produce, or but as I've said, right now I feel like my hands are tied in so many ways. But I'm as we started this whole podcast, we were talking about how we met, and the concert and everything. And I think, this is also a possibility for us to maybe record things together, because when you record, you can record in different countries, and you can have, a good mixer, put it all together. And I mean, maybe there's an option of putting an album out together with a lot of other classical crossover artists. Maybe doesn't have to cost so much money, or maybe we could do a like a crowdfunding somehow together. I have no idea, but it's so even though I do lie down sometimes and cry, or sit up half the night and drink rosé wine, or whatever, ideas are still popping. And I think at the end of the day, there will be a solution, or something else we can do, because just creative people, we keep creating. That doesn't stop because there is a pandemic going on, or because there is no money at the moment, or whatever. We keep creating because that's who we are, really.
Yeah, you're completely right. I think not only being an entrepreneur, you've got all of those responsibilities that are all on you. If you've got an employer that you're working for, then you've got that job there and when your next paycheck is coming. Like sometimes I have really felt jealous of my friends that are in regular employment, where they know where their next paycheck is coming from. But when you've got a family to support and you're working for yourself, you don't have that level of security. And so ideas keep popping into your head for that reason. But then also as a creative, I feel like I keep coming up with lots of ideas for lots of things I want to do, because my brain is constantly creating ideas for me. And then I guess it's really great that you work so hard under pressure, because it sounds like you're like me, in that when I come up with an idea, I want to do it and I'm excited about it and I want to do it now.
Exactly.
Then I end up with too much on my plate, which happens quite often. And it sounds like you're very similar in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, you also learn after a while to just say no to certain things, and sort of balance out what you can or cannot do. I mean, I've had several projects that just didn't pan out, and when you feel like it's not going anywhere, you have to kill your darlings, so to speak, and just I'm doing a podcast, or I have been doing a podcast about musical theater in Sweden for several years, but I never really felt like it didn't really get picked up by enough people or whatever, like I wasn't making any money off of it. It just took a lot of time and effort and money to produce it and do it. So after a while, I just had to say, you know what, I can't do this anymore. Or at least I have to take a break from it, because I have other things that I am making money off of, or things that are more important. It's all about prioritizing, I think. And once you get too much on your plate, you learn that you have to prioritize. But I think women and moms are very, very well equipped to deal with a lot of things at the same time, because we practiced a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're completely right. It's just a lot of, I can't imagine what it must be like now during lockdown, having all that pressure. And then having kids to look after as well. I mean, it's great that you've said, I'm so glad I've got them during this time to keep me focused. But I should imagine there's a lot of other parents out there going, when can they go back to school?
Yeah, but I live in Sweden, so my kids are in school still. So we have.
Oh, they haven't shut the schools over there.
Yeah, I feel right now like the whole world is like hating on Sweden, because we're doing things very differently. And no one really knows what is the best solution to this pandemic. And I mean, I feel like we don't even know. I mean, we don't know, but we're trusting the scientists that are in charge, and they have chosen another path for our country. And so the children, all the children younger than high school are still in school. So the high school kids and university students, they can't go to school. They have to study at home. But the younger children, such as, I mean, my kids are now 9 and 14, they're still in school. So for them, it hasn't really been that much of a change, to be honest, except that, when they're home, they're bored because we can't go to the movie theater, or we can't, do anything. But we haven't had a complete lockdown at any point in time. So we've been allowed to go outside, or, go to the stores or whatever, as long as we've kept our distance and, stay safe. Sweden is handling this differently than many others. And whether that's good or bad, no one's probably going to know until, this is over, and a whole lot of years down the line, when you can really get all the numbers together. But at least in terms of keeping everyone sane, I think that has been a good solution for the children as well. So
in some ways I can completely agree with you, and see how that would be good for people's mental health, because I know that a lot of people over here in lockdown have been really struggling, and there's now this thing called lockdown syndrome, where people are just feeling like they want to burst into tears for no reason. And
I mean, that's happened here too, but I totally understand. I mean, I have friends all over the place since I worked everywhere, and I mean, I have, when you start witnessing, how people start changing on social media, and how they, you can tell they've been locked in their apartments for too long, like they are going crazy. And it's not fun to see, like grown up people who suddenly, I don't know. There are so many examples, but I have one particular person in mind that lives in Italy, and they were on the strict lockdown for at least 2 months.
Yeah.
And I mean, he went from being like a normal, nice person to then suddenly, posting, half nude pictures of himself every day. and changing his Instagram to some sort of pretending that he wanted to be a male model suddenly, and you're like, what are you doing?
That's quite a change by the sounds of things.
Yeah, it was so crazy, and I was like, what are you doing? What's happening? And yeah.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
I don't think it's a good idea to put everyone in their separate cages for too long.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I haven't seen any quite dramatic changes like that. I've seen people sort of voicing their concerns on social media quite a lot. But I think one thing...
There's a lot of new experts out there.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Pandemics and disease control, etc. That's also very interesting. But yeah.
Yeah, I think one thing
I've actually...
that's... Oh, sorry, go on.
I've actually taken, most social media off of my phone for now, because it's been driving me crazy. I mean, I find it hard for myself to handle the stress that I feel, reading everyone's crazy comments, or, when it gets too much, that I'm not handling that very well. So I just decided for me that it's better to take it off my phone, so I it can't feed me constantly, and then obviously I still use my social media for work, and but I do it over my laptop, and I open that, once or twice a day to check emails and just check everything. But yeah, for me at least, it hasn't been a good idea to keep social media on my phone and, being constantly in it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Richard said something very similar to me. I mean, I've got all the apps on my phone because I find it useful for posting work stuff. But yeah, we actually had a conversation yesterday about how good it would be to not have social media on our phones. And I'm sure we're in that crazy bracket of people who check their phone like 100 gazillion times a day. And it's just got worse during lockdown, and I think it's boredom, like just looking, going, what's going on in the world?
Absolutely, it's absolutely boredom. I mean, I gained weight because I've been eating for 2 months.
Yeah.
No, but I'm like, that's why I was so concerned about this video, because I'm like, look at this, like, well, because it's all I've been doing is like drinking rosé wine and eating bread and stuff that I don't normally stuff myself with all the time. But it's boredom, and stress, mental stress and boredom. And I think I only have my kids every other week because I'm divorced now. But at least those weeks when I have the kids, I don't drink wine, and we play a lot of board games and we do fun stuff together. So I find that the weeks when I don't have the children are harder, because normally before this happened, I would work a lot during the weeks when I didn't have the kids, and try to work less, when they were with me. So I try to spend a lot of quality time with the kids when I have them, but now I can't really do anything when they're not here, so I find that harder.
Well, you've got quite a lot in common with your children in terms of musical things, haven't you? Because didn't one of your little ones record something? Did I see a little while ago?
Well, yeah, my daughter, she does a lot of voiceover for TV shows and films. So she's
so cool.
Yeah, so she's done a lot of work for Nickelodeon and Disney, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, you probably have these TV shows over in England as well. There is one show on Nickelodeon called Nella, the Princess Knight.
Oh, right, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so she's Nella, the Princess Knight. And there's a new series coming on Disney Channel called Mira, Royal Detective. And she is Mira, the Royal Detective. Yeah, she's the lead on a show called Hilda on Netflix. She was little Moana in the Disney movie Moana in Sweden.
Wow.
She was one of the tiny cars in Cars 3. And
that's so cute.
So she's done a lot of voiceover work, actually. Yeah.
Wow, how did she get into that? How did you open those doors for her?
No, but one of my colleagues in Bridges and Madison County, he's a director for voiceover actors as well, and they always need kids because it's difficult to find good kids for. It's a difficult job, you know. It's a lot of things they have to deal with because they're. I don't know if you've ever seen people who do voiceover work, but I mean, they're in the studio and then they have like the script on paper, and then they hear the English original voice in the headphones, and then they have the screen with the action going on. So they have to really multitask, you know,
Wow.
read their lines, try to sync it with the expression of the English voice in their ear and with the mouth movements on the screen, and also, you know, perform some kind of emotion or yeah, because it's not, you know, obviously just reading the lines. You have to, I mean, it's voice acting, you know. So anyway, so he got her in to do a voice test when she was 10 years old, um, and they liked her, and she got to do, you know, like just some little lines. That's how she got the Moana movie. I mean, that was just a couple of lines and a little bit of singing. And then just a month later or so, they had voice castings for Nella, the Princess Knight, and he recommended her for that. But he told me that, you know, she probably won't get it because she's a little too young and she hasn't, you know, really done anything yet. And it's a huge series. Like if she gets it, I mean, she's gonna have to be in the studio for like 6 hours a week to do all
Gosh.
the, yeah. And so he's like, I'm just saying, you know, she can come and try out for it, but, you know, just let her know that she's probably not going to get it, but it's a good way for her to, yeah. But then she got it, and now, you know, they want her for everything. So yeah,
That's
she's doing a lot of.
amazing.
I would love to do voiceover for, you know, like Disney or something, but no, it's my daughter doing it now.
I feel the same way. I'm still waiting for
Yeah.
Disney's call too. I'm here. If
Yeah.
they want to call me, I'm
Hello.
here.
Yeah. I'm you still have that really princessy voice though. I would have to do, you know, like a Disney villain at this point.
Oh, I
Now
think
I
that would be
sound,
fun to play though.
it would be fun. But my dream was always to be a Disney princess.
Yeah.
And my voice isn't always this low. It's just that I had a lot of wine yesterday with a good girlfriend of mine that I haven't seen in like 2 months. So this is kind of my hungover voice.
I think it sounds very nice and rounded. I think if you were to sing now, it
Yes,
would sound
very
very beautiful.
mature.
Yes, exactly. It sounds lovely.
Yes.
It must have been so nice to be able to catch up with your girlfriends, because that's something I'm really, really missing at the moment.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to see anybody for ages. I actually put a tweet up a little while ago going, does anybody else feel like they're the only person left in the whole world because you haven't seen anybody for like weeks? That's how I
Yeah,
felt.
that's kind of how it feels like. Because I mean, as I said, although we have different rules in Sweden, we can see each other if we're careful and no one is sick and all this. But um, people are taking it very seriously. And I think that's important for everyone to understand that we're really not doing a whole lot of crazy things. We're taking, you know, we're responsible. Most people here are. So yeah, we don't see each other very often, but so her I haven't seen since the beginning of March, and she came over to my apartment last night and we cooked dinner and sat on my balcony and had a fair amount of rosé wine. Let's
Sounds like
just
it
say
was very enjoyable. I think that
it
sounds
was
great.
very nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was great. It was really great. And those little things now are the things that, you know, keep you sane, to be honest. So yeah.
Absolutely. I'm really intrigued as to what the rules are over there then, because like with us, no kids are in school at the moment except for the key workers kids. We're all in lockdown, but we can go out and exercise as much as we want now, and we've still got the social distancing and 2 meters and all that.
Right.
but yeah, for you, I guess if you're allowed to have people around, then it's not quite as strict as because we couldn't have anybody in our houses right now. We could meet up if
No,
it's.
there are different rules for older people. You know, like
Okay.
if you're over 70, you're not really allowed to do anything.
Mm.
Children, as I said, they can, you know, up to a certain age, they are still allowed to go to school and do sports and, you know, things like that. And otherwise, it's really basically, I would say, kind of the same rules like everyone everywhere else. Like, keep your distance. We are not required to wear masks when we're out and about,
Right. Okay.
like they are in America, for example.
Mm.
And you know, some people still wear them, especially older people. But it's basically, they're telling us that if you're feeling the least bit ill, you're supposed to stay home and, you know, not do anything. If you're feeling healthy and if you're fine, then, you know, keep your distance from other people. We're not allowed to, you know, like meet up with more than 50 people. So basically, you can't have like a huge wedding with a lot of people or, you know, things like that. But it's like our rules, as far as I understand them, are based a lot on common sense at this time. So like, even though she came over yesterday, there is no like normal hugging or, you know, you know what I mean? She's one of my best friends, but there's, you know, she came into my apartment and we're sitting, you know, apart, but drinking wine together in the same
Yeah.
room, which is nice. And, you know, you wash your hands a lot or, you know, things like that. But yeah, there are definitely a lot of things that are different than they were before this whole craziness happened.
Yeah. It's nice that your government kind of trusts you enough to be sensible with it, because I think that's why we've been put on lockdown.
They
One of
don't
the
trust
reasons.
you guys.
No, I don't think they do. No, because it's nice when people go, oh, you know, just use your common sense. But as the phrase goes, common sense is not so common all the time. So
No, I think
to get a handle
Swedes
on
are
it.
quite compliant, and, you know, like we're, you know, yeah. Most Swedes are very careful anyway, and you know, we're also um, afraid of conflict. So no, but I mean, not me personally, but most Swedes are very afraid of getting into arguments or doing things wrong. So
That
I
sounds
think like
nice.
the whole, so
I feel like I'm very much like Sweden in that respect.
yeah, but so I feel like, you know, people are very afraid of, you know, like stirring the pot, so to speak. So I mean, I can give you an example. Like last week I was at the gym, because we are allowed to go to the gyms, but, you know, you have to clean your equipment before you start using it and once you're done using it.
Right.
And I was on this elliptical machine, and there was this older man, probably in his 50s, next to me on another elliptical machine. And when he left it, he didn't clean it. So I got off my machine, but excuse me, you know, like, you have to clean your machine. That's not for anyone else to do. That's your job. You know, like, that's the rules. That's why
Good for
you're in it.
you.
Yeah. And he's like, oh yeah, of course. Sorry. But I mean, if no one had said anything, he would have just walked away. But I think we are very good at sort of monitoring each other also. Like, the rules are, you know, like, we like rules in Sweden. I like rules. And if someone has told me, you know, like, when you stand in line in the store, you know, you stand 2 meters apart, or you have to do this, I do it. And most Swedes do. And when someone gets out of line, you know, people get annoyed. And so, yeah, I
Yeah.
think the Swedish mentality lends itself to this sort of common sense rule. And I think that's also why Italy has been on complete lockdown, because they don't. I mean, you can just go to Italy and see how they park there, and you will understand why we've had different rules.
That's funny. So has your government offered you any kind of financial help during this time, like the English government has?
I'm not sure what the English government has done. I mean, there is certain help, yes,
Yeah.
but I feel like the rules are not super clear, and it's it's been difficult. I've applied for some financial help because of all the shows that we were supposed to play in the spring.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, and but you know, you have to fill in a billion forms, and you know, this, that, and the other, and send it over. And I still haven't heard anything about it. I mean, I'm hoping, obviously, that I will get some help, but I don't know when that's gonna happen or come. It's not been like in America. I know that they've sent out checks to people, for example, like everybody. That hasn't happened here. I think there are a lot of great initiatives from our government in that will happen, but because they're, you know, worried that people will cheat or take advantage or whatever, you know, they're trying to be very thorough, and you have to send in a whole lot of forms and paperwork and what, and it takes time because it's so many people who are affected. So I mean, it's a waiting game, and I feel like also just we just have to be patient and resilient and wait, and that's 3 things that I hate. Like, I am not a patient person. It's like you said before, you know, like if I want to do something, I want to do it now, and I will find a way to do it now and make it work. And now it's like someone has, you know, tied my arms and legs together, and like, you just have to lie there and wait. And I'm like, I hate waiting. Like, I don't want to. But I've seen a lot of shows on Netflix and HBO and whatnot that I wouldn't have seen otherwise because I never have time. So if you want any recommendations on good shows, you can always ask. I know them all.
That's good to know, Victoria. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. I do feel really lucky in a way that the government did introduce lockdown, and I know that sounds weird, but I think if they hadn't have done, they wouldn't have offered the amount of financial help that they have. And when the arts and the music industry has been decimated so badly from this virus, it's just made me feel really relieved, I guess, because I think if we hadn't been offered that financial help, then it would have been playing on people's mental health even more if we hadn't had that financial help in place. So I do feel really lucky about that. And I hope that the financial help that you applied for comes through for you as soon as possible, because I can't imagine how you must be feeling with all of that right now. So I'm like, I'm like hoping and praying and sending it out to the universe. Going, come on.
Yes. No. I mean, again, I'm just like breathing, and you know, you have to take one day at a time, and just it's strange how time, or my perception of time, has changed. You know what I mean? Like, before it felt like time went by so quickly because I had so much to do, and now I'm like, I've already done everything I needed to do, and I'm like, and the time is 9:42 in the morning. And I'm like, so what do I do with the rest of the day? You know what I mean? Like, maybe I need to take a bath. No, because I did that yesterday evening, so I really don't have to take a bath. You know what I mean? It's like, what do I do with all this time? It's crazy. Now suddenly it's so slow. Everything is so slow. And I mean, maybe there's the purpose. I mean, maybe I really needed this break to sort of not stress myself to death. I don't know. But
it sounds like the whole break is making you stress yourself nearly to.
I know it's a different kind of stress now.
Despairing kind of stress.
Exactly. Before I was like, getting an ulcer.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, yeah, having panic attacks. No, so it's very different. But it's ups and downs. It's like a whole great roller coaster, this whole thing. But eventually, it there must be a solution.
Yeah.
And yeah, at
Well,
that point, I'm ready to go.
I hope there is a
I'm ready.
solution. Like, I
I'm
admire your
ready. Like,
optimism.
open the door. I'm ready. Someone put a meme on social media today when I that I saw, and it was basically someone dragging a cat along, and it said like, all of us when we have to go back to work again. And I'm like, what? No, no. So I found this other meme with like someone sort of skipping around dancing in flowers, and I'm like, this is me when I get to go back to work.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
Sound of Music. I'll be ecstatic when
You'll be
someone lets me go
rejoicing.
back to work.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Well, maybe there's like an old hobby that you can rekindle during this time. Like, is it? No.
What? Well, I read books. I like books, so yeah, that's fine. But and yeah, now I've realized that I do have to work out a lot more. So yeah, that's something I can do. But yeah, I don't know. Like my hobby, it's like I live and breathe entertainment and singing and like that's my life. That's my passion. That's what I feel like that's why I was put on this earth. Not necessarily to sing all the time. I love singing, but it's really interesting how I feel like I've found an equally, if not bigger, passion in producing. There is something really incredible about putting, like the whole puzzle together and seeing the whole picture. And one of my absolute favorite things is calling someone to tell them they got a really good job, like they got a really good role that they've won, to see people audition and you find someone you like and to call that person and say, hey, I want to pay you to do this. And, they're getting super excited about it. That's probably my favorite part, and working with all these creative, amazing people to, create something together that's going to be incredible for an audience, hopefully, to watch, so that's a whole different perspective on the entertainment industry for me, since I've always been one of the pawns or one of the pieces of the puzzle. Before I've been the singer or the actress, like one piece, and now I sort of get to play with all the pieces and put it together, and I find that really, really enjoyable.
That does sound absolutely amazing, and I really hope that you can get back to doing it as soon as possible. It just, hearing you talk about it so passionately, it really makes it sound like that is what you were put on this earth to do. So will you keep us updated with how you're getting on?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I will definitely keep singing as well, but yeah, I feel like the older I get, because at some point, I won't say that, oh, you will get too old to be an actress or a singer. That's not what I mean. But I feel like compared to when I was 20, when, you just want to work because you want any job, because you want the experience. I feel like now I only want to be on stage and perform if there is something where I feel like I can bring something really special to the table. You know what I mean? Like Francesca in Bridges of Madison County, that was a role that I felt was really right for me to play. I mean, Francesca is a woman in her 40s, um, being torn between her heart and mind and family. And, like, it was just like, it's a very interesting female character to play. Because to be honest, in most musicals, it's really difficult to find female characters that have so many levels. there's either, you know, like the princess that needs to be saved, there is like the evil witch or the fat mother, you know, like there are but there's a lot of female characters are quite two-dimensional, especially in older musicals. More, you know, like caricatures that are there to enhance a male performance. And um, that's another thing that I'm really passionate about is equality, you know. And so it's interesting when you start producing as well. What do you decide to produce? What do you want to put on the stage? I mean, the funny thing is that I, a few years ago, said that the one musical that I would never ever do was Jesus Christ Superstar, because it's like 2 billion men and one woman and she's a whore, you know. So I just thought it was really dumb. And now when I decided to produce Jesus Christ Superstar, which is now not going to happen, but anyway, I felt like it was at least my um, intention to put a really strong Mary Magdalene on stage, rather than, I mean, she's quite often portrayed as, you know, a very soft and sweet, a younger woman. And I wanted a real powerhouse as Mary Magdalene, you know. And so I'm really happy and glad that I, you know, had that. Unfortunately, we probably won't be seeing this show. But anyway, if I'm gonna, it doesn't really matter if I'm gonna produce it or play in the shows I produce myself. But I think for me, it's become more important what we put on stage in terms of female characters as well, because I think that's one of the best things that we can do to sort of you know, because it's like what people see on TV or in shows or whatever, what young girls dream about becoming, or, you know, it's stuff that they see on TV or stage, or and I feel like there's a shift coming. But I mean, like, I remember when I was young, and one of the first musicals I saw that I really really loved was Phantom of the Opera, and I always wanted to play Christine, which I got to do when I was 24, 25 years old. And the most interesting part about Christine for me is that she, it's her arc, you know. She's a very young, innocent girl in the beginning of the show, but she really finds her own power throughout the show. And at the end, she is, you know, a quite strong female character. So for a young soprano role, I think she's a very good example of a character that has more layers to her. So, but anyway, so that's something that's important for me, whether I take a role now or stuff that I think about before I choose a show or something that I want to produce.
Do you think you'd be interested in writing your own musical at some point to really portray those values?
I don't know if I'm good enough to do that. I would certainly...
You're totally good enough. You're so talented, like unbelievably, and you've got all that experience as well, like from working in.
Well, I mean, I think it would be nice to maybe do like a collaboration with someone and try to do. I don't know if I could do the whole thing by myself, but I mean, I would certainly be interested in collaborating on projects to create something from scratch. You know, when you start writing a new musical, I mean, it takes years and years and years before it's ready usually. So yeah, I mean, if I find a good enough story or something that I really feel like, oh, this is what I want to do, or I have a great idea, you know, I would never say never, because, you know, right now I've started writing a book. Because
oh wow!
I don't know.
In lockdown, you know, that's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's kind of an inspirational you know, book for aspiring entrepreneurs, or yeah, just because I have a saying that I've been using for years, which is, if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
I love that.
And yeah, and I have so many um, good stories about when that has panned out for me. You know, like, if I didn't ask this question, or if I didn't, just asked, this whole thing would never have happened. You know, and I can give so many examples on how that has worked to my benefit so many times throughout my life. You get a lot of no's, absolutely, but if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So that's just something that now, when I've been in lockdown, because I've been thinking about it for a long time, that maybe I should try to write this down in some book or another, I don't know. And so now at least I've started, just writing down um, things that could potentially be a book in the end. We'll see.
Wow, I can't wait to read it already. Have you got like an example story you can share with us? Like, I'd love to know.
um God, I have so many. Well, okay, I'll give you a short example. I when I was playing Christine in Phantom of the Opera in Denmark,
Mm,
when you've played a show and you get back to your apartment, you're still sort of on a high, and you need some time before you get relaxed enough to go to sleep.
yeah.
And this was a year when it was the Winter Olympics, from somewhere where the time difference worked in my favor. So it, they showed it all live on TV in the middle of the night. So I got back to the apartment, and I remember watching figure skating from the Olympics live, and it was this incredible Russian figure skater skating. And the commentator said that, oh, and next year we'll see him in Sweden for the European Championships. And I was
Wow.
like, oh wow, I want to see this guy skate, like, how can I get to meet him? How, like, he's amazing. And this was before the internet. That's how old I am. So I uh, I wrote a letter to the Swedish Figure Skating Association that night, asking if they needed a performer to sing the national anthem or anything during the European Championships. Because I mean, I didn't tell them that I wanted to meet the Russian figure skater, but that was my motive. And, like 3 weeks later, I got a letter back saying that we would like to have a meeting with you, because yes, we do want some entertainment for the European Championships. And I ended up being responsible for all the entertainment the whole week. I did the opening show, I did national anthems, I did the closing show, like everything. And all was because I just sent a letter, from a crazy idea that I wanted to meet a Russian skater that I saw at the Olympics.
This is
I did meet
amazing.
him.
You
Yeah,
did?
so I did meet him. He was really nice and fantastic skater. It was great seeing them all live. And the funny thing is, as an extra little twist to this whole story, is that what, if you ever watch figure skating, at the end of a championships, they have this sort of, I think it's like the top 5 in each category that has like just a show the day after they finish the competitions, like an exhibition show.
Oh, I didn't know
um,
that. That's
that
cool.
Yeah, like an exhibition gala that they also send on TV usually.
Oh,
And uh, so it was I think the competition ended on the Saturday, and then the exhibition show was supposed to air on the Sunday. And there was this big party for all the skaters on Saturday night, and most of the skaters got super drunk, except this Russian girl who had won the gold medal, Irina Slutskaya. And so we ended up sitting talking a lot because I didn't drink much then either, especially since I was singing and had shows going on. Then you can't drink. And so, and she mentioned to me, I mean, this was probably close to midnight. She's like, oh, I always, wish that I could perform with the live singer on the ice. And I was like, we should do it,
Yes.
And she's like, what? Like, would you want to do it? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And so the next day, she's like, okay, so tomorrow at 9:00, I have my practice time in the arena. Meet me at the arena at 9. Okay, so I met her in the skating arena at 9:00 in the morning. She had already talked to the International Skating Federation and the TV company if we were allowed. They allowed it, and at 2:00 that same day, I performed live on the ice. I think it was 150 million viewers on Eurosport watching it.
What?
And yeah, I was walking out on the ice and she was skating around me. And that's just another, like, if you don't ask, or if you don't say yes to ideas, or at least try, I could have just said that, oh yeah, that would have been fun, we should talk about it sometime. But it's like, we can do it. And what I mean, like, sometimes you just have to ask a question or say yes and solve the problem later. You know what I mean?
I actually got goosebumps when you were telling me that story. I feel like, wow, that's such an incredible thing to. And
yeah, I think you can probably find that video on YouTube. Actually, it's like the 2003 European Championships, Irina Slutskaya, and my last name was Krantz, then Krantz, because it was my maiden name.
We're going to have to find this and put it in the description so people can see, because that sounds.
We'll see. Yeah, we might. Yeah, I think it's somewhere on YouTube. You can probably dig it out. But it was, yeah. So I mean, I have loads of stories like that. Some, smaller, and some, as big. But basically, if you don't ask, you won't know what's going to happen. So ask the question, send the email, make the phone call. The worst that can happen is that someone says, no, sorry, can't be done.
That's amazing and so inspiring, and it's so great to hear such an incredible example like that, because when I'm working with my young singers, I tell them, you have to take every single opportunity available to you, because that was what my mum told me when I was little. That's one of my pieces of advice that I've grown up with. Take every single opportunity, and then you have to explain those opportunities can be given to you from outside of you, but a lot of them you have to make for yourself. You have to make your own opportunities. And that is such an incredible, inspiring story of making your own opportunities like that. Like, I can't wait to.
And I think
I want to read this book already.
Yay, the book is going to be great. No, but
it is going to be great.
I think, it's, I mean, if I can just sort of put it all together, I think it could be quite inspiring and interesting to read, actually. But I feel like one of the things that I try to tell people as well is that, and I actually got it from Richard Branson's book. I love Richard Branson. He said at some point or another that basically, if the opportunity presents itself, say yes and figure it out later. Because a lot of people think that the timing has to be perfect. You have to know everything already. Like, if it's not, perfect, and you don't know it, then you can't do it. Of course you can. Like, fake it till you make it. Try. If someone says, oh, can you come and sing this song at a wedding in 15 minutes, and you're like, absolutely. I mean, okay, 15 minutes, but you know what I mean? Like, I actually had almost a call like that last year when a singer got really sick and they were supposed to do like a Christmas concert in a city about 4 hours drive away from Stockholm. And they called me at like 10 o'clock in the morning. And they're like, the concert is tonight in Karlstad, which is, as I said, a 4-hour drive. Can you come and sing? Because, you know, we have a choir and everything. And I didn't even really know the material. So, and I'm like, yeah, sure, absolutely. So for 4 hours, I'm driving and listening to the music at the same time. And I mean, I was also allowed to have the sheet music because it was that kind of concert.
Oh, thank goodness for that.
But, you know,
that's a lot of pressure,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, but, you know, you can do it. You know what I mean? Like, okay, in this particular instance, I said yes because I'm a very experienced performer, so I don't get super stressed out or nervous. I know what I'm doing. But I was a bit nervous because the material was rather new to me. But, you know, I feel like what's the worst thing that can happen, really? Like when I got Christine in Phantom of the Opera in Danish, which is a very strange language, you know, I was supposed to have, I think, 4 or 5 weeks rehearsal to be put into the show because I was a cast change. I wasn't the Christine that played the first year, so I was put in for the second year of the show. And so, but I was still supposed to have 4 or 5 weeks of rehearsal. And the first day I got to the theater, I got called to the theater director's office. And I was like, oh shit, I'm getting fired. And I haven't even started. And he's like, well, you know, Susan, who's playing the role now, she has got another job in an opera and would like to leave in 10 days. Can you go on in 10 days? So he basically left it up to me if this other woman could say yes to a new job or not. And I was like, sure, I can do Christine in 10 days in Danish.
Oh
and yeah, and I did. But
that's
yeah,
amazing.
so, yeah, but one of the things that, you know, it was very sad and horrible, but, you know, my opening night was September 11th, 2001.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, so it was crazy because during like my final rehearsals, everyone was sitting watching the World Trade Center come down. So that made my opening night less. I mean, I wasn't very nervous because I was like, what's the worst that can happen? I sing something wrong in Danish, you know, the world is ending. You know what I mean? So, and I think that's something that stuck with me, you know, like the worst thing that can happen is that I sing something wrong, or it's really not that bad. You know what I mean? No one's going to die because I sing a wrong note. So,
oh my goodness.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. You're very brave, I've got to say. I really admire your bravery and your courage, but I think a lot of it has to do with just the fact that you are such a professional.
Stupidity.
I know it's knowing how professional
and impatience.
You are, and impatience.
I'm like, 10 days, hell yeah, I don't have to rehearse for 5 weeks. Let's go.
I can do it sooner, yes.
Yes, let's do it. I remember it so well because you know, I don't know if you've done musicals yourself, but when you do big shows, you know, you start rehearsing in a rehearsal space in your own clothes. You have a lot of time to learn where you're going, what you're doing with which person, etc., etc. In this 10-day rehearsal period that I had for one of the biggest roles in musical theater, you know, I was put straight on stage with my co-star. So my first ever rehearsal for Phantom of the Opera was coming in with the boat in the duet. So having been a huge Phantom of the Opera fan since I was 12,
yeah,
the first time, I mean, you go on and they're like, get in the boat. And you're in the boat with your phantom and the candles come up through the floor. I mean, I burst into tears. I couldn't sing. I was like, oh my God, I'm Christine. It was so overwhelming, you know, to be on the other side of of that, yeah, to be Christine suddenly.
To
And
have
it was
your
so
dream
quick,
coming true in front of you and seeing it all with the
Yeah,
candles. Yeah, oh gosh, that sounds amazing.
yeah, because it was like I was put straight into the magic, you know what I mean? It was not like had to go through all this long process of rehearsing in a rehearsal space and doing all that stuff. I was just, dropped down in the middle of this magical place, It was really cool.
That does
So
sound
yeah,
really cool.
I Phantom of the Opera is one of my, you know, that's one of the things that I will definitely remember on my deathbed. I'm telling you that. I loved every second of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. How did you get into that then? Like, where did the opportunity come? Was that another ask that you made, or?
It kind of, actually, because
Yeah.
I was in Germany doing a show called Ludwig II, and I was playing the Empress of Austria.
Ooh,
Uh,
very nice.
and
Oh,
and
I've lost your video. Where have you gone?
okay,
There you
I'm here. I'm here. Sorry, someone called. I don't know what happened. I'm sorry. No, but you can probably cut this anyway. So I was in Germany doing a show called Ludwig II, where I played the Empress of Austria, and I had a friend who was in the ensemble in Phantom of the Opera in Denmark, and I heard through her that they were going to play a second year and that they were doing a cast change. And my theater director wouldn't let me go for the audition because I was playing in Germany. So I called the theater in Denmark and asked if I could send them a videotape instead, again, before the internet. So I sent them a VHS cassette tape with my performance in Ludwig, which was also quite classical.
Mm.
And then I got a phone call and they said, we would really like to see you for Christine. And then I lied. Then I lied to my theater director in Germany and went to Denmark on a separate date to audition for Christine. And because the Really Useful group that I talked shit about before, because they won't let me do Jesus Christ Superstar next year. But anyway, they have rules for whoever plays the leads in Phantom of the Opera and in a lot of their shows. So they had to sign off of the people playing Christine and Phantom. So when I did my audition in Denmark, they videotaped my audition. And then they sent that video over to England. And then, weeks and weeks later, I got a phone call on my birthday that I had gotten the role
Oh
of
my gosh,
Christine.
what an amazing birthday present.
Yeah, that was fantastic. The thing is that I didn't really understand what he was saying because he was speaking Danish. So I was like, it took a while for me to process that, I had actually gotten the part. But yeah, that was really great.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah, it's one of the best things that I've experienced in my life.
Wow. So you said
Mm.
that they've got conditions as to who can play Christy. Is that like based on look or like what you sound like, or?
I think it's a lot of things, probably both look and sound. Like they want to, I mean, they won't let the Danish team decide for themselves. They want to sign off of Phantom and Christine in particular, because I mean, it's a brand, I suppose, and they want it to be good enough.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't know how many Christines had been seen for the cast change, but I mean, I was certainly not the only one. And I know that the Danes wanted a Danish person, which is understandable.
Mm.
But as far as I know, I was the only one that they agreed on in England. So I got it.
That's incredible. And getting that phone call on your birthday as well. You're like, yes,
Yeah.
birthday ever.
Yeah. Hooray.
Yeah. Gosh.
Fantastic.
Having
No, that
like
was
that is incredible,
but
and I
the
love.
thing is that you can't really take it in when it happens, you know. It's like, yeah, like we talked in the beginning of this podcast as well, when I rented this concert hall in Stockholm, and it's sold out and it's all amazing. Like on the day when you're in it, when you're there, you don't really understand what's happening because you're so focused on your performance, on getting everyone else to do their job. You know, it was just so many things going on that you can't really process it at that time. So the celebrations usually happen, you know, it can be, you know, when you're just out walking your dog and this incredible happy feeling comes over you, and like you remember, like, oh God, yeah, I actually did that, you know. So
That's absolutely incredible, and I just love how inspiring you are, just telling people to go for it, because it's just, that's what you got to do. You've got
yeah,
to put yourself out there. You can't be afraid. You can't be afraid of that no that might come, because what if it's not a no?
you're gonna exactly, you're gonna get no's. I mean, that's not even a question. You're gonna get no's, you know, all the time, but you will also have some wins, and that's the ones, you know, you have to celebrate, and you will get more of the wins if you start asking for them, you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. I think that's an amazing, inspiring place to end, and I just really hope that people will write that down and plaster it
Yes,
on their
write it
wall,
down.
just to get that inspiration every day, because that's just, it's such a great
Absolutely.
message. So I can't wait
Yeah,
to
so
read your
who
book.
knows, in a few years you might want to read my book.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, please get writing it while you're not, while
All
you're,
right,
yes, pen in hand. Amazing.
pen in hand.
Thank you so much, Victoria, for joining me on the
Thank
Mary-Jess Meets
you.
podcast. I'm so grateful to have you on, and it's just been amazing talking to you. So thank you so much.
Thank you for, well, thanks for having me.
And I'll look forward to catching up with everything. Please keep us updated, won't you?
Absolutely.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Good.
Bye.
Bye.